Hello and welcome to our next segment on Meet Lincoln, even though we are technically in Ruidoso at the moment. But this is my friend Sumi. I met her during Old Lincoln days a few years ago. She and Marla, who we will be talking to later, were giving a presentation on.
It was all the evidence that we had captured in Lincoln pertaining to ghosts and the paranormal. And so every year we like to do a presentation. I guess I should introduce that I am Sumi from Lincoln County Paranormal, and me and my husband started Lincoln County Paranormal. And Marla, who will be interviewed afterwards, is also part of our group, and we have about 5 to 6 members or so. Kind of flexes and flows with the times, but yeah, we've been investigating Lincoln as well as Fort Stanton and the entire county as our primary focus, just because it's harder to go further. But yeah, every year at Old Lincoln Days, we like to do a presentation on any new evidence that we've caught, as well as do kind of a highlight reel of some of our best footage that we've caught over all of our years of investigating out there. And yeah, that's where I met the lovely Tamsin.
Now, where we're sitting in an amazing bookstore in Ruidoso. Aberrant Moon, there we go. It's located in Ruidoso, and we'll have another segment we recorded where Sumi actually takes us on a tour of this bookstore herself, which is awesome. You can kind of see, I'm going to do that thing where I go, see, lots of awesome books and all this other fun stuff. So, so we're going to talk about Lincoln a little bit since, as you know, and by the way, the bookstore here does carry The Curse of Billy the Kid, and they'll have the next book when it comes out as well. So if you are in Ruidoso and you would like a copy of The Curse of Billy the Kid signed, they have them. And they also carry other local authors. So if you are a local author, get in touch with them. First up, how did you end? Are you from Lincoln, or how did you end up here?
That's a long story, so I'll keep it real short. I was born in South America, so it's just a long story of kind of how I got here. But me and my parents moved here when I was about in second grade, so I've lived here basically all my life. So definitely a local who's been here a long time. So I grew up with hearing the stories of Billy the Kid and, all the ghost town stories and all that fun stuff. And so who doesn't love that? And my mom actually got a job working out in Lincoln, and it was a couple years after we moved here. I forget exactly when it was, and there was a ceramic um, gallery there, and so she ended up working there, and because that's what my mom's passion is, she makes ceramics, and it was in the old schoolhouse. So she worked there for several years, and so during the weekends and or summers when I wasn't at school, I ended up going to work with my mom a lot of the times, and I would get to wander around the old schoolhouse. And this was before, right now it's been turned into like a private home, and I hate that because now no one gets to see the beauty of it, and
Where is that located?
it's right next to the courthouse.
Oh, it's that big
It's
building.
that big building. But
Ah,
yeah,
yes.
that was the old schoolhouse, and so I got to see it with the old, dusty old floors and like how it was. So it was cool, and that was kind of when I really got to know Lincoln, and I got to play with my friend that lived across the street, and so we would run up and down the street, going to the river or the park, and just playing tag and that kind of thing. And so I remember those summers fondly. And there was also like they had a you know kids summer day camp thing, and we would do arts and crafts and stuff. So I spent many summers out in Lincoln, and yeah, so I just got to know the place and some of the locals by doing just spending time there. And my mom, when she was working at the schoolhouse and I was there, I would feel things. And so, not my first paranormal experiences. I had those, just at our home property and stuff, and before that. But I definitely felt things like someone was staring at me, and I would wander around around, kind of looking around the corners. You know how you do. And sometimes I would see like shadows out of the corner of my eye, and then I, would hear stories of like other people would hear kids laughing or footsteps and things like that. So I did experience some of that and heard the stories. And then I heard my mom would hear the stories and tell them to me, and she had, I think, talked to one of the maids or housekeepers that was cleaning the Wortley across the street, and so the story was she went in there to clean and forgot like the pledge and ran out of something and had to go get it. Was gone maybe like a few minutes, and she just made the bed and everything. When she came back, the bed was undone and everything she just did was undone. She knew that there was no way that anyone could have, gone in there and done that. So and sometimes you would see the curtains moving and no one was in there, things like that. So I grew up with those stories as well. And my mom also experienced stuff. There was one time she said she was in one of these back rooms and kind of looking out in that field, and towards where there's the restrooms out back behind the courthouse. So she was looking that direction, and she said from over there she saw a Victorian couple, with the whole, dress and everything, with their arms interlocked, and they were walking towards the schoolhouse. And she saw them take, a handful of steps, like 3 or 4 steps, and then vanish into thin air. But they were see-through, and so and she saw that kind of like out of the corner of her eye, but when she looked is when they disappeared.
Right.
So she told me that story one day after. That was really cool. I'm like, I wish I could have seen that.
I think you and I talked about a night you had mentioned how there's a specific energy source that you guys found that is right in front of the Wortley in the road, and I said, let me guess where it is, and you said okay, and I told you my dog and I had gone out for a walk late at night, and I was staying at the Wortley, and we got to this spot in the road, and my dog, I just all of a sudden was like, we can't go any further, get back here. And Caden started going back and forth and back and forth, and I was like, I think we need to back off. And I wouldn't let him go that way because I just felt like something was wrong. And I showed you where, and you're like, yep, that's exactly the spot.
Yes. Yep.
And I was like, yeah, I'm not shocked.
Yeah.
I hear there's a residual outside of the Wortley Hotel, room 3, I think it is.
Yes.
And I've never heard it, and I'm so sad. It's what's funny is it's my favorite room.
Yeah.
And I've stayed in it a couple times, and if I have the choice, I like to stay in room 3. And I'm not sure what that says about me. Maybe it's the energy there. But I never have heard the footsteps, and I'm really sad. I just sleep that hard, I guess, because I've had people say they hear it on 2, 3 in the morning.
Yeah.
So I don't know. So one of the things about Lincoln that's kind of great, not just for paranormal, but the energy of Lincoln, I think, stems from a lot of the fact that it was once known as the most dangerous street in the country, right?
Yeah, it was the most dangerous street in America is what they called it, and during the times of when Billy was there, and when they had all, it was I forget the statistics because I haven't done the tours in a while because everything's been canceled this year.
Right.
So yeah, like I forget. I'm not always the best with dates and numbers, but for what the several year span, it was like however many years it was during that span of time, there was like 15 murders along that 1 mile stretch. So because of that, it was known as the most dangerous street in America. And so yeah.
And now it's the most dangerous street because of all the trucks that come through and people who speed through there. Yeah. You have to be really careful. So Lincoln in itself is interesting because people come back time and time again.
Yeah.
And so I was curious why you think that is. Do you think there's something about, do you think it has anything to do with that paranormal energy, or do you think that it's just the history? What do you think brings people back to Lincoln time and time again?
I think there's a lot of layers to that. So I think part of it is because this is the Wild West. We are in the Wild West. And so people want to come see that. And I know that both Lincoln and Fort Stanton are some of the most well-preserved of like ghost town fort and that kind of thing not only within the state but if within the Southwest. We have like the buildings and everything are very well preserved, and there's so much of it that is still like it was. Like if you go into the Tunstall still, they have that picture when you walk in, and you can look at the picture from, you know, back in, you know, the late 1800s, the early 1900s, and that whole time era, and it looks the same, and a lot of the artifacts in there are original to the time era as well. So, you know, that's really awesome. Like, you know, how many places still have that. So there's those aspects of it, where it's just, you know, people want to see that. And of course, it's, you know, to me, crazy that Billy the Kid is the most well-known like outlaw in the entire world.
Which is interesting because there were more outlaws, like,
There were.
and people still. I mean, Jesse James, and they're all interested in them as well. But Billy the Kid is the one that everyone knows.
Yeah, everyone knows. And
Yeah.
even what they made that set of stamps.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that.
Yeah, but what, it was in the 90s, right? That set of stamps.
Yeah.
And so, you know, and then Billy the Kid, you know, was like, was he in there or was he excluded? I can't remember if he was part of that. But anyways, yeah, he is just so well known all around the world. Like, you ask anyone from anywhere in the world, and like Billy the Kid's probably going to be the first one out of their mouth. Even though there were so many other ones.
And even though the information they think they know on him is not necessarily always correct, but it's interesting because, you know, and so yeah, Billy. But you think, why do you think Billy and himself has transcended such a long time? I mean, that's the 1870s. You're talking, this is 2020. As shitty as a year as this year is, what do you think? Why do you think it's 2020 and people still flock to Billy the Kid story?
You know, it's kind of a mystery, honestly. Like, I haven't thought about it in a great detail as to why, and but I have a little bit, and it's just so, you know, mind-boggling to me too. It's like, why of all the places here, why us, why him? But I do think that there's just something about him and his story where a lot of people can relate to it, or because just what happened, and is so just what quintessential, or I can't think of the right word, of the Wild West in those times. Right. And so I think that's part of why everyone kind of flocks to him and flocks to his story, just getting lost in that time era and going on that journey. And I think a lot of the elements of Billy and of his story and of everything that happened fit all those different things. You know, it's a lot of, there's a lot of elements that maybe happen to some of the other outlaws and stuff. But I also think it's partially because there's, like, you know, the two sides of how Billy is seen, where he's like almost like the Robin Hood type figure. So people, you know, like him for that reason. And then of course there's the other side of it. So I feel because of that, people can from both sides can relate to it. They can either feel into or tie into the Robin Hood, you know, side of him, or they can, you know, go on to the other side of it where they're like, you know,
people love the idea of two sides fighting a war, both thinking they're right. I mean, I got asked, I was at the Dolan house one day saying hi to Bev, and someone's like, so is Billy the good guy or the bad guy in your story? I'm like, he's the good guy. And he was like, you're wrong.
Yeah.
And that's okay. I mean, I think that's really a lot of, I think that has a lot to do with his draw, is that, like you said, you get to see him, how he relates to you.
Yeah.
And I think that's really one of the coolest things about his story, other than just everything about his background. So it's something that, and I mean, of course, it's opened up the ability for all of us to, I mean, I'm not the first person to write about Billy in a fictional sense either. Like, they used to be books about him, and he was the hero. Yeah. So, you know, and I believe there's been movies. And so I think that there's just something, there's so much about him we didn't know. There's so much about it that has been left to the imagination that people can kind of see themselves and they can picture whatever they fit.
Yeah.
Which brings up my last question.
Yeah.
I'm asking everyone this, and I didn't prep anyone.
Cool.
Did Garrett kill Billy?
Oh, it's such a hard question because I want to believe that he lived on.
Right.
And so I tend to lean towards that. As to when and where he died, I'm not sure we'll ever know. And so
Which it adds to the legend a bit. Like,
it does.
yeah,
It
not. I mean,
does.
everyone always says what really cemented him as someone in history is when he broke out of jail and killed the deputies and ran, and that's what made his mark. And I don't really think that's what made his mark.
No.
I think that, and I don't even know how it became a thing where people questioned whether he died or not.
Yeah.
I don't even know how that started, but I've heard some interesting stories that everything from Brushy Bill to ending up in England.
Yeah.
So there is actually a tombstone in a small town right next to where in a town next to where the Tunstals lived,
Yeah.
and it says William H. Bonney, and the year of birth I believe is close, if not the same, and the year of death would have been about right.
Yeah.
And it's so there are people that believe that the Tunstals got Billy out.
Yeah.
So, and what's funny is I didn't learn that until after I'd made the decision that the regulators were part of a team of regulating supernatural activity out of England. Like, they were that old. And so when I found out that was one of the stories that some people believed, I was like, that's hilarious. I didn't know that when I make these decisions.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's one of those things. I'm like you. I'm like, I want to say he got away, but then again, you're like, where'd he go? So yeah.
Exactly.
So we may never know,
Yeah.
and that's okay.
Well, and then I've heard a lot of those stories too.
Yeah.
So there's so many stories out there, and then I always question as to, well, why would you make it up? As why would you say that you saw him? I've heard these and read these accounts of people who say, I want to say some of them lived in other parts of New Mexico, like Las Cruces or whatever, and swore that they saw him afterwards, or gave him sanctuary as he was on the run, and things like that. And of course there was that guy that claimed that he was Billy, and one thing and another. So it's I think it's just funner to imagine that he got away and that he lived on, and however he lived on and when he died is a mystery. But that's, I think, I agree that I think that's
part of it, and I'm thankful for it because now I get to write about it and play with it, and I had to write the scenes recently and figure out how I was gonna make that work.
Yeah.
So anyway, we are at time. I really want to thank everybody for joining us for the next segment of Meet Lincoln, even though we're in Ruidoso. Please make sure that if you come through Ruidoso that you check out the bookstore, that you go online and look into it, visit them on Facebook. Guys, these books, there's a ton of them. The paperbacks are $1. The hardbacks are only $2. Like, this is sincerely, if you have someone in your family, kids, adults who love books, this is where you can really come and you can buy books. And especially during COVID, we can't really do a lot of anything right now. So reading is safe. So come in, find books, help support local art. And thank you so much again, everyone, for tuning in. And thank you, Sumi, for taking us on a tour and for talking to us about how you ended up part of the Lincoln family.
Yeah.
Everybody, take care.
Bye.
Bye.